Funding for the art show was made possible by Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District, the Virginia W. Kettering Foundation, proud supporter of the arts in our community, and viewers like you. Thank you.
In this edition of the Art Show, the Dayton Art Institute's collection is bigger than you might think.
We have about 27,000 objects in the collection. We exhibit at any one time probably about 5% of that.
Dreams and nightmares come to life in ceramic form.
Sort of folk art from the culture of me.
One Ohio company is preserving a lost art.
So if we keep people interested in it, we can keep this craft going for generations to see all the time.
And this Ohio artist uses materials from her family farm.
I love being able to see the cloth form and create the design.
It's all ahead on this edition of The Art Show. Hello, I'm Rodney Veal, and this is The Art Show, where each week we get unprecedented access to local, regional, and national artists and arts organizations. The Dayton Art Institute is continually changing up their permanent collection. If you had a hard time deciding where to hang your pictures at home, imagine doing it in a museum. There's a science behind the design, layout, and makeup of the collection.
I am the curator of the permanent collection of the museum. In Great Britain, the curators are called keepers of the collection, which is more in line with philosophically how many of us think about it, that we are really just the stewards of a collection. We don't own it. We just are trying to keep it safe and interpret it in a scholarly way and present it to the public during our tenure of overseeing it.
I really look at a curatorial team and a curator as the heart of an art museum. She is who sets the pace. I set the culture and the tone and work with the staff to move it forward. She sets the heart of what we're doing. She brings art together in a way that we can all understand and learn and hopefully love it as part of our daily lives.
Through a combination of gifts and acquisitions, the Dayton Art Institute has built a collection of roughly 27,000 objects, and at any one time exhibits about 5% of it.
Over 90 years, this museum has been collecting art. Many of the pieces in the collection come from very generous families in the Dayton community. Our collection is essentially what we call a world art collection, so we really try to represent peoples and cultures from around the world. We rotate objects on and off, so works on paper have a window of about 3 months, 6 months for textiles, that you can have them out on view at any one time, because the degradation of light starts to interact with some of the pieces, and so you really want to just be mindful of the fact of how long is that piece being exposed to light. Things go on loan, and we'll fill those spaces with things that are in storage. Sometimes there are conservation issues, so we'll pull pieces off view because there are issues that way as well.
There's works on panels here that are very sensitive to environmental changes, and so those are best in microclimates to try to stabilize the fluctuations of temperature and humidity. We try to maintain our environments at 70 degrees and 50% humidity.
Conservation is a constant issue that we are always mindful of, and the condition of a work of art at any point, we regularly go through the galleries and look at objects to see and make sure that things are stable. If we look at something, a painting, for example, we're always looking to make sure that the paint is still adhered to the canvas. Old paintings in particular sometimes has crackle pattern going throughout. Most of the time it's fine. In some cases it can be lifting off the surface. So in those instances they're very, very fragile. In other cases, varnishes get yellow, and frames sometimes are often very dirty. Frames have protein in them when the glue is laid down to then lay the gold leaf on top. Protein is a food source, and so flies will come and eat the protein, the glue, and then do what all creatures do and leave specks on the surface of the frames, and so we want to get those off.
Anytime a piece of work is moved, it's vulnerable. Martin and his team have extensive training and specialized equipment to accommodate the range of paintings and sculpture objects they move on a daily or weekly basis. But that decision to move a piece of work doesn't happen quickly.
I can't just decide, oh, I don't like that work anymore, I'm going to change it. It's a conversation I have with education, because docents might be using that piece for a tour. A conversation I have with marketing, because they might have used it in some kind of a printed piece, and talk to the director. So it's many conversations I have to have before I can just move something.
Every single object in the collection, all 27,000, is cataloged with a picture. Artist, title, date, and description are all searchable fields. When these new pieces are ready to be displayed, a lot of thought and planning goes into the gallery design.
The art should come first, and I don't take a very heavy-handed approach to design. Sometimes I feel it's kind of a distraction from just the enjoyment of the work itself. I think sightlines are important. They're kind of the first impression. As a designer, it's hard to dictate how every individual person goes through a space, but there are certain repetitions. You try to determine, do they go right, do they go left, do they automatically respond to something that's large in the room or in the back. You can try to do your best to dictate which way a visitor would interact in the space. As much as you hope that someone goes to the right, they'll go wherever their eye leads them or wherever they feel inclined to go.
The Dayton Art Institute has continued to evolve and find ways to make art relevant through the years. In 2019, the Dayton Art Institute will celebrate 100 years. And in a city the size of Dayton, this is an incredible gem, accessible to everyone.
I think Dayton historically was a city of great wealth in the early part of the 20th century, and there were great amounts of very serious art collectors here who supported the museum and helped build the collection. So the pre-Columbian collection is really strong and unbelievable for a museum of this size to have such a great pre-Columbian collection. Our Asian collection, I believe at one point, was ranked the 5th best in the country. So really some anomalies that people might not think as they're traveling down the I-75 corridor en route to Cincinnati or maybe up to Toledo, that it's really worth a stop off, because some of the pieces that we have really are world-class and maybe surprising for people in this neck of the woods.
It actually cost us, every day we're open, $12,000 a day to run the buildings. That's a big proposition for anyone. We're a not-for-profit, and how do we make that work? Dayton's changed, our community's changed. A lot of corporations that supported us have left. So how do we best use the space that we have? It may mean we get a little smaller. It may mean we change the footprint of some of the galleries in the space. So we're looking at all that right now. It's a really exciting time. As we look at those spaces, it's going to set us up for the next 100 years. And that's my goal right now, is getting us there where we're getting everything, the buildings, the collection, our community engagement, the best it's been in the last 100 years to get us ready for the next 100 years.
If it's been a while since your last visit to the Dayton Art Institute, go see what's changed. You can find a link for hours of operation at thinktv.org/theartshow. Ceramic artist Sarah Swink uses her inner child and her psyche to create ceramic figures. These pieces take on a life of their own, often characterized by visual juxtaposition. They are reminiscent of characters from dreams and nightmares. Take a look.
I think there's a lot of power in the shadowy side of things, and I don't shy away from it at all. I happen to be in a less dark place in my life right now, but I've been through plenty of dark places and really used art to explore those places. I make human and animal figures with a psychological stance and a dash of humor.
Sarah Swink's ceramic sculptures can be visual juxtapositions, almost familiar creatures, reminiscent of a dream or a half-forgotten nightmare.
My work comes out of my own psyche, and it comes through a process that I use, starting with collage and sometimes involving doodling, sketching, and then making the piece in clay.
The process invites ideas from her unconscious up into view. Then she chooses how to work with them.
It's like an unlearning process to get out of the way. There is a thread and there is a narrative. It's like my life narrative is coming forth in the clay. And if I just stay out of the way and let it come forth and not judge it, then it will keep going. Judgment stops the process cold. So that is a practice. That's a real everyday practice, to suspend judgment, let the ideas just flow and go with where the energy is. I think my style could be described as almost folk arty, sort of folk art from the culture of me. There's thought in it, but for me, it's much more how it feels. And if I can't make a decision about how I want it to look, I picture how I'd want it to be if I kept it in my own bedroom. That's what makes a lot of decisions for me. What I do is I get a big stack of magazines, usually some National Geographics in there, and some art magazines and things that have really high quality photography. And I go through and I just look for things that grab me, that pick me in a way. This is one of my image journals, and here are some of my images. The way that I've broken this up into chunks, these images go together. And there's usually some kind of association between them. And so I like to write notes about what those associations might be, and then sketches start to happen. So here is a sketch of a girl sitting in a chair holding a house, and that's inspired by these girls, these women holding houses, but the house is on fire. Where the fire came from, I don't know, but that became a piece. And so this is a really important part of the process for me. So that's kind of the fun, is finding images that already have meaning and have interest, and then combining them in new ways, and then giving myself this resource library full of ideas and imagery I can draw off of forever.
Next, a sketch that will probably become a piece. She's still exploring, but this time with pen and paper.
Here's the wolf's head, and it's holding this book, How to Train Your Dog. And so that is the beginning of working out this idea of doing a bust of the dog holding the book. One of the ideas that I seem to come back to over and over again is the instinctual versus the domestic. So a wolf, in this case, I combined with this other picture, and it just occurred to me, I think after I put this book together is when it occurred to me, here's someone reading a book with a dog on the front, and I thought, well, this would be the wolf reading the book, How to Train Your Dog. And that's about the danger of the wolf losing its instinctual nature. This is a maquette, and maquette is a French word for model, and it just means a sketch. It's a sketch done in clay. As I'm going, I'm feeling, how do I feel when I look at the piece? Is it capturing the essence of something pleasing to me? And in this case, it was. It captured the gesture I wanted really well. Even actually better than the maquette, because there's a little bit more of the leaning into it that I could do on a larger scale than I could with a smaller one. Adding color is when it all comes together. It's when the vision really starts to happen, because so many of these pieces, like this one, are so much about the color. When the clay is wet, it's beautiful by itself. When it dries, it's less beautiful. When it's bisque fired, it's first firing, it's probably at its homeliest. What we have to do is bring back the color to it to make it beautiful again, which is a very challenging process. It's very easy to go wrong with glazing. I'm looking at the brush strokes and thinking about whether I want them to show up or not. I might do a little bit of this to blend them out if I want to, and I'm layering the colors. So I first did red and then orange and now a yellow orange to get really rich, deep colors. I don't like my pieces highly finished. I like to have pieces that have my mark on them, that have hand marks on them that aren't perfect and polished. So I know a piece is finished when it brings the idea across, and I don't need to overwork it from there. I love working with clay because it's malleable and everything I make has my mark on it no matter what I do. It comes out in my style, and that's just what happens with whatever we do, really. But clay has a special way of becoming like an extension of myself. I do think that the 6-year-old that lives in me is the one who makes the choices about what we make next, and I go with that. I think she knows what she's doing.
If you're interested in trying ceramics for yourself, we have a list of local ceramicists offering classes at thinktv.org/theartshow.
Are you an artist or know an artist with an interesting story? Pitch it to us. Send an email to theartshow@thinktv.org. Include contact information and links to performances or art samples online.
Hi, my name is David Sherman. I'm a filmmaker, and here's my tip. Whenever you're filming children, film them on their level, eye level. Don't film them from above. Also, if you're going to film on a phone, turn the phone sideways, because that's how we experience the movies. And that's my tip.
A demand for apple butter kettles at an Ohio hardware store has led to nearly 140 years of artistry. The partners of the store decided that their tinsmiths could become coppersmiths, and they could manufacture their own kettles instead of being a reseller. Generations later, artists are still hand-making the kettles in the same factory.
We're in D Picking Company in Bucyrus, Ohio, and this is a copper kettle factory. The building was built in 1873 for $1,675. They started making apple butter kettles in 1874. So we've been making apple butter kettles in this building for 139 years. Nobody in Ohio made apple butter kettles in the 1800s, so the only place you could get them was Lancaster, Pennsylvania. There was a German-Dutch settlement there, and they made the copper kettles. So the Pickings had a hardware store, and they wanted to sell the apple butter kettles.
My father started working for the family at the hardware store, and then he decided that he liked the copper kettle idea better than the hardware, and so he moved his interest into this builder and to this activity here.
We start with a flat sheet of copper, and then we use a dovetail clamp. We use brass shavings, borax, and water, and we put that down the seam, and we light the forge, which starts around 1300 degrees. That melts the brass through, and then we hammer that. We're the only company left in the United States that hammers the whole kettle, and it's called planishing there. And the planishing hardens it, it brightens it, and we make timpani shells for most of the major orchestras in the United States. And being hard copper, it gives them a deeper bass tone. There's no other place in the United States that does it this way. So if you want to learn, you have to come here, and you have to be an apprentice. Start you out a little bit at a time, and it takes around 6 months to a year to learn the whole craft. But you're not a coppersmith until you can start with a piece of copper and work it all the way through and make a kettle. Then you become a coppersmith.
Heritage, as far as this business is concerned, began when I was born, when my father and mother were dragging me down here while Dad worked at night, and that sort of thing. So I feel sort of home in this particular place. And the thing I like most is the men that I have working for me.
Well, Helen's father, I worked for him for 5 years. I came here and he was hiring apprentices. So I was here for 90 days and then they asked me to stay, and I've been here ever since.
My father had lots of friends, and people admired him a great deal, and so people got to knowing him, and that was important. He sat here, and when a lot of people came to see him because they liked him, they liked what he did, they loved the elephants, they loved his response to them. The elephants were the history of my father, who as a kid loved elephants. And a town like this, a little circus would come in, there he was, behind the elephant, or around an elephant. And then he just got so when as they got older, he would seek out circuses that had an elephant, and then he would give the circus owner some money, and he would ride the elephant during one of the parades around the circus tent. He would ride that, and was doing that when he was over 100. So you can see he kind of liked what he was doing. Yeah, loved it.
This is part of a lost art, and if this goes out of business, then there'll be something missing. The candy companies won't have the copper kettles there, and the tradition will die there. So if we keep people interested in it, we can keep this craft going for generations to see all the time.
It doesn't make any difference to me if I sell a lot of things. If I sell few things to people who really like it and leave it and want it, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's it.
The place is like stepping back in time. So by coming in here, you're going to see something that you won't see anywhere else.
If you'd like to take a personal tour of the D. Picking and Company for yourself, visit thinktv.org/theartshow and click on the D. Picking and Company link for contact information. Finally, tonight we meet a fiber artist who weaves scarves and shawls out of the fibers shorn from the alpacas on her family-run farm in London, Ohio.
My name is Karen Boyer, and I'm a weaver. I weave mostly shawls and scarves. I started weaving to make scarves to go in our farm store for our alpaca business. I don't know if you can see the babies. Come here. You're not going to take it? It says, no, we're on camera. We're not going to do that. So I started with scarves, and it took me about 3 months to decide that I was going to do much more than scarves, because I found out that I really liked it. Oh, you guys made me nervous.
I know, I'm sorry.
It's all right. And these beads will coordinate to the petals I'm going to push to create this pattern, because it's a very long pattern. I took classes down at the Cultural Arts Center downtown Columbus. I've been going down there for about 5 years. When I was in kindergarten, my mother taught me to sew. And so in the meantime, I have done every form of needlework there ever could be. You know, in high school, I did the flowers on my jeans and stuff like that. So weaving was next, you know. What else was there? Weaving, I love seeing the cloth come to life. You know, I love being able to see the cloth form and create the design. Alpaca is a very, very fine micron. And so it has the feel of more of a cashmere. So it's really awesome for scarves and shawls because it has a lot of drape. It's really, really warm, so you can make a lighter weight garment and have it still be warm, and it breathes. So I don't do a lot of dyeing. Every now and then if I need something dyed, I might go down to the Cultural Arts Center and use their dye room downstairs to do that. But mostly I like to work with the natural colors of alpaca.
To get connected with other weavers locally, check out the Weavers Guild of the Miami Valley. You can find the link at thinktv.org/theartshow. And that wraps it up for this edition of The Art Show. I hope to see you at an arts event soon. Until next time, I'm Rodney Veal. Thanks for watching.
Funding for the Art Show was made possible by Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District, the Virginia W. Kettering Foundation, proud supporter of the arts in our community, Ohio Arts Council, Ohio Humanities Council, and viewers like you. Thank you.